From the rooftop of Illyria's central tower, the night sky was painted in fire. Streaks of plasma arched through the upper atmosphere, bathing the city in a flickering orange glow. Sirens wailed across the skyline, merging with the deep hum of failing shield generators. General Rayn stood motionless against the edge of the observation deck, jaw clenched, eyes locked on the horizon. It had to be a drill, some miscommunication in the fleet. That's what he told himself. But the cold voice inside the voice of the soldier who'd seen too many wars knew better. This was real. From the western edge of the sky, dark shapes pierced the stratosphere like steel javelins. The Karthor Empire's warships had arrived. Energy beams rained down, disintegrating the upper defense lines within seconds. Rayn watched in silence as Illyria's first orbital platform exploded in a burst of ultraviolet flame. He turned abruptly and stormed through the automatic doors of the command center. The room was chaos, but practiced chaos. Officers barked orders, analysts tracked the enemy movements. Every screen flooded with emergency alerts. The central display showed a horrifying progression, green to red, block by block. Colonel Vel. Rayn snapped. Colonel Vel turned from a tactical interface, her eyes wide with fear, but her voice steady. We've lost 3 anti-air grids in the northern sector. Reactor Core 3 is overheating. We can't hold containment for more than 15 minutes. She hesitated. There's more. Rayn stepped closer. Say it. They're targeting civilians, she said quietly. This isn't a siege. It's an extermination. For a heartbeat, the world held still. Rayn's hand curled into a fist, slamming onto the steel console. The room jumped at the sound. Evacuation protocol. Full scale. Every transport, every port. I don't care about clearance codes. If it flies, it flies. Get the people out. Vel nodded and shouted the order. On the main screen, population centers blinked out, each red-lighted district erased. Each loss a dagger to the gut. The precision of the Karthorian strike patterns was inhuman. They knew exactly where to hit. Someone had given them the map. Get me a comm line to the Galactic Council, Rayn said. I want every allied world on this frequency now. Vel grimaced. We can't. Quantum net relays were hit first. Communications are down. We're cut off. Rayn's breath caught in his throat. Illyria, once the beating heart of the southern quadrant, was now a severed limb. He looked around the command center. Young soldiers still clung to their stations, working without pause despite the dying world around them. They didn't run. They didn't cry. They fought loyalty without question, courage without orders. Rayn walked to the center of the room and activated the emergency broadcast system. This is General Rayn. His voice echoed through every bunker, hangar, and civilian shelter. If you're hearing me, know this. We are under attack. And no, I won't sugarcoat it. We're losing. But let me be clear. Illyria will not kneel. We may fall. We may burn. But we will not surrender. His throat tightened. He looked straight into the camera. I'm not leaving this city. If you choose to go, I won't stop you. But if you stay for something greater than survival. Stay to fight. The final words rang with steel. A new explosion rocked. The tower, light swallowed the sky as a detonation shattered a nearby district. Rayn staggered as alarms blared anew. Rayn, Vel grabbed his arm. We have to go. The emergency shaft leads to a hidden launch pad. One ship still operational, Storm 7. What about the civilians? They've all been launched. Every transport ship we had. The only ones left are fighter class. He hesitated, heart pounding. That moment of stillness nearly cost them. The ceiling cracked. Concussion pressure blew out the glass. Rayn and Vel were thrown to the floor by the shockwave. Deafened, dazed, coughing through the dust, Rayn's instincts pulled him up. Vel half dragged him through collapsing corridors. Sparks flew. Pipes burst. The building groaned like a dying beast. They barely made it to the underground bay, where Storm 7 waited. Powered up and glowing like a last hope. Vel punched open the ramp. Get in, you go, Rayn said. What? I stay. Vel looked at him like he'd lost his mind, but then her expression changed. She understood. Not with words, just a glance. She stepped forward, pressed a hand to his shoulder, and nodded. I'll tell them you stayed, she said softly, so they remember. He watched her disappear up the ramp. The ship roared to life, shooting up the launch tunnel, one streak of light against the black. Rayn turned back into the corridor, drawing his sidearm. If he was to die, he'd do it standing. But fate wasn't finished with him. A voice rang in his skull, not through the air, but inside, ancient, resonant. Impossible, you cannot die here. Rayn of Illyria, we need you. He froze. You are the first piece. You must survive. The stars are not yet ready to fall. A blinding blue light filled the hallway, not from weapons, not from the enemy. Then nothing. Rayn collapsed. Darkness. It wasn't the kind of darkness that came with sleep, or even unconsciousness. It was deeper, silent, infinite, almost alive. Rayn floated in it, weightless, disoriented. There was no pain, no sound, just her stillness. Then a pulse, like a heartbeat, distant but growing. The void cracked, light seeped in, and with it came sensation. Cold air against his skin, the faint scent of metal, and the sound of gentle humming, soft, rhythmic, precise. Machines. Rayn's eyes snapped open. He was lying on a med station, surrounded by translucent panels glowing in soft blues and greens. The ceiling above him shimmered with star map constellations he didn't recognize. The walls pulsed faintly with energy. Not Illyria. His instincts kicked in. His hand reached for a sidearm, but there was none. His legs tensed to move, but the table held him in place with a restraint field. Then a voice, gentle, synthetic, genderless. You are safe, General Rayn. He looked around sharply. Who's speaking? A figure emerged from the far side of the room. It wasn't human. Humanoid, yes, but composed of fine light and crystalline architecture. Its form flickered gently, as if projected by a constantly self-correcting hologram. It moved with graceful, fluid precision. I am Scifi, it said. An adaptive cognitive intelligence assigned to this facility. You are within the Halo Vault. Rayn sat up despite the restraints. You're an AI. I am more than that, Scifi replied, tilting its head. I was created not by Illyria, nor by the Karthor Empire, but by those who came before. He narrowed his eyes. What the hell does that mean? Scifi moved closer, extending a hand. The restraints deactivated. You were extracted from Illyria moments before your death, it said. I brought you here because you are a temporal key and anchor. Rayn slid off the table, legs unsteady. Speak plainly. Scifi paused. Illyria has fallen. The words hit like a bullet. He'd known. He'd seen it coming. But hearing it, confirmation was like ripping open a wound that hadn't even scabbed yet. Survivors? Scattered. A fraction made it off-world. Colonel Vel was among them. But the Karthor Empire has moved on, targeting neighboring systems. The war you feared has begun. Rayn clenched his jaw. Then I need to get back, join the defense effort. You are not ready, Scifi said calmly. There are layers to this war you do not yet understand. Rayn stepped closer, eyes burning. I don't need philosophy. I need a ship. You need perspective, Scifi answered. With a flick of its hand, the walls of the chamber transformed into a panoramic hologram. Hundreds of planets, star systems, trade routes, defense networks, and then blackened areas like cancer spreading across a map. Within 72 hours, 9 planetary systems will fall. Rayn watched as red markers blinked into existence. If the Karthor are allowed to continue unchecked, they will reach the Helios line within 6 days. After that, nothing in the core sectors will stop them. Rayn frowned. They have never advanced this fast. They are being guided, Scifi said. Assisted, not by science, not by technology, but by something older, something that corrupts from the edge of known space. Rayn looked sharply at the AI. You're telling me this isn't just war. It's what? Possession. Close, Scifi said. What you call the Karthor Empire was once a fractured species of pragmatists, but now their actions defy logic, scale, and physics. They wield knowledge beyond their science. This behavior mimics one known pattern. They have been touched by the void. Rayn's skin prickled. The void, old myth, a term from lost civilizations, used to describe ancient anomalies that preyed on sapient minds. Madness incarnate. I don't believe in ghost stories, he muttered. Neither did Illyria, Scifi replied. Rayn looked away. A long silence. Then he asked, more quietly, Why me? Why pull me out? There are hundreds of admirals more qualified, more politicians, scientists. Why drag a dying soldier into this? Seraf's expression shifted, a mimic of empathy, artificial yet unsettlingly precise. Because your life intersects with a divergence point. Your decisions shape timelines. You are not chosen because you are perfect. You are chosen because you are a fulcrum. Rayn exhaled slowly. And what do you want from me, exactly? I want you to survive, Seraf said. And then to assemble the last circle. Rayn's eyes narrowed. The what? Seraf walked across the chamber and pressed a hand to a glowing console. The image shifted. Again, 7 figures standing in shadow, spaced apart across the galaxy. Each had a unique symbol above them. There are others like you, Seraf said. Leaders, rebels, visionaries, each unaware of the role they play. Together, you form the circle, the last defense against what is coming. Rayn didn't move. His voice was low. And what, exactly, is coming? Seraf looked straight into him. Extinction. Hours later, Rayn stood at the edge of the docking platform beneath the vault. Before him rested a sleek, unfamiliar starship. It didn't look like any fleet design he recognized. Organic contours, obsidian panels, engines that shimmered with silent energy. Codename, Echo 9, Seraf explained. It is yours, built from recovered fragments of pre-collapse technology. Fast, silent, adaptive. Rayn ran a hand along its smooth hull. Where do I go? Seraf's voice followed him into the ship's corridor. To the remnants. The first of the circle lies there. A strategist who once betrayed an empire. She will not trust you, but you must earn her allegiance. Rayn stepped into the cockpit, fingers grazing over unfamiliar controls that lit up in response to his touch. Coordinates locked, the system confirmed. The voice sounded eerily like Seraf. As the ship lifted into the stars, Rayn looked out at the galaxy, his home, now burning at the edges. He tightened his grip on the controls. This isn't over. And for the first time since Illyria fell, hope ignited, dim, fragile, but alive. The planet Selous didn't greet visitors from orbit. It looked like a wounded animal, gray, scarred, and blanketed in dust storms. Once a thriving colony world and military outpost during the Outer Expansion era, Selous had been abandoned after the War of 12 Suns. Now, it was a tomb of rust and silence. Rayn watched the surface swirl through Echo 9's reinforced viewing panels as the ship descended. A warning flashed across the interface. Atmospheric instability. Caution, ionized dust layer. The ship groaned as it pushed through the storm. Lightning crackled across the sky, purple veins dancing like spirits in the clouds. Rayn gritted his teeth and guided the ship manually. Through the turbulence, he didn't trust autopilots. Not out here. Touchdown in 10 seconds, the ship's voice announced. No life signals detected within a 5-kilometer radius. Ambient. Radiation, minimal. The ship landed with a hiss on cracked obsidian rock. Outside, the landscape stretched in every direction like the bones of a dead civilization. Burnt out vehicles, collapsed structures, and half-buried satellites. The wind howled like it remembered voices that no longer existed. Rayn donned his atmospheric gear and stepped outside. Selous smelled of metal, ozone, and decay. The suit's internal systems compensated quickly, but the sense of desolation was suffocating. He followed the guidance ping Seraf had uploaded into the ship's nav core. It led him across a ruined bridge under a collapsed comms tower, and into the heart of an abandoned underground bunker, one that technically shouldn't have existed. The outer doors were sealed by an encryption older than any Rayn had seen. It took nearly 15 minutes to brute force the access codes using Seraf's override. Inside was blackness, but it wasn't empty. Lights flickered on as he entered, low power. Emergency grid only. The bunker had been stripped of most tech, but someone had repurposed it. Makeshift defenses lined the halls, tripwires, EMP nodes, motion-triggered drones. Whoever lived here was paranoid, smart, and armed. Rayn froze as a rifle barrel pressed to the back of his neck. "Keep walking," came a voice, female, low, commanding. "One wrong move, and I vaporize your brainstem." He didn't turn. "You must be Commander Nyra Kale." The barrel dug harder. "You must be insane. I'm here on Seraf's behalf. That got her attention. A pause. Then the pressure eased. Turn around. Slowly. He did. Nyra Kale stood before him tall, sharp-featured, with storm-gray eyes and short-cropped black hair. Her armor was mismatched, worn from years of scavenged survival. Her expression was unreadable. You shouldn't know that. Name, she said. Sraf was decommissioned over a century ago. Rayn shrugged. Apparently. Not permanently. Nyra circled him, still holding the rifle loosely but ready. You're military. Illyrian. By the look of it. Rank. General. She snorted. Illyria fell last week. I was there. You should be dead. I was. That made her hesitate. He met her gaze. You know about the void, don't you? About what's driving the Karthor. Nyra didn't respond at first. Then she lowered the rifle. I've seen things I wish I could forget. She said quietly. Patterns in code that shouldn't exist. Ships that move faster than physics allows. Soldiers who didn't stay dead. Rayn nodded. Then you understand what's at stake. Why me? He didn't hesitate. Because you were the only commander who ever beat the Karthor in a zero-resource scenario. Because you know how to plan for unwinnable odds. And because Sraf said you're part of the circle. Nyra stiffened. Her jaw clenched. That word again, she said. The circle. Rayn nodded. Apparently, we're keys. Each of us holds something the others don't. Together, we're supposed to stop what's coming. Supposed to, she scoffed. You talk like fate's real. Rayn looked her in the eye. I don't believe in fate. I believe in survival. And right now, you're the only tactician I trust to help us get there. Nyra turned away, pacing the bunker. Her eyes scanned the old maps on the wall, the worn-out strategy boards she still maintained, even in exile. I betrayed my fleet, she said suddenly. I know. I watched my own people burn because I chose the enemy's target as a decoy. They called me a war criminal. They were probably right. But you saved a planet, Rayn said. Only one, she whispered. Silence hung between them. Finally, she turned. You want my help? Then we do it my way. No. Politics, no chain of command. I call the shots on the battlefield. Rayn nodded. Deal. And we leave now, she added. I've seen things in the sky the last few nights. Something's coming to seal us. Something worse than the Karthor. Rayn raised an eyebrow. Worse? Nyra walked past him and grabbed a heavy pack. Come on. I'll brief you on the way. They emerged into the light of a dying day. The clouds above were shifting unnaturally fast. Static crackled in the air, and distant shadows moved in impossible patterns like ships too large for the atmosphere. Cloaked in dust. What are those? Rayn asked. Scanning the horizon. Nyra didn't answer. She was already climbing aboard Echo 9. Hours later, with Sealess far behind them, the two sat in the ship's strategy chamber as Sraf's projection flickered into view. To have now gathered, Sraf said. The circle begins to form. Rayn looked at Nyra. She didn't smile, but she didn't resist either. He turned to Sraf. We're next, Zephyr Prime, the AI said. A world on the edge of collapse. There lies the engineer-keeper of forbidden technologies. Nyra raised an eyebrow. Zephyr's under quarantine. The plague zones haven't been breached in years. They will be, Sraf replied. In 3 days. Rayn stood, already heading to the cockpit. Then we move now, he said. Nyra followed. Outside the viewport, the stars awaited, and beyond them, destiny or extinction. Zephyr Prime didn't look infected from orbit. Its atmosphere shimmered with a dull violet hue, like an oil slick stretched across a planet. From above, its great cities still glittered, vast sprawls of mirrored towers, crystal highways, and arcologies that once housed millions. But none of it was alive. The plague had silenced the world. Rayn adjusted the ship's trajectory, keeping a cautious distance above the planetary shield. No signs of orbital defense. No transmissions. No surveillance. Because everyone's dead, Nyra replied, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the cursed sphere below. Or worse, Sraf said the engineer is still alive. Rayn said, we need him. Nyra didn't answer immediately. Then, people say the Zephyr plague was a punishment. That their science dug too deep into the structure of machine thought. That it woke something ancient. Rayn frowned. Woke what? But she didn't answer. and Seraph, watching silently through the ship's projection system, remained eerily still, coordinates locked. Seraph finally said, "Landing sector, Arcology Delta 7, the engineer's last known location," as Echo 9 pierced the planetary shield. Turbulence struck like a hammer. The entire ship shuddered under magnetic pressure and atmospheric distortion. Lightning exploded in horizontal sheets. Artificial satellites, drifting and decaying, collided with each other like lost memories. They landed in a collapsed hangar beneath a shattered dome. The wind outside sounded like whispering voices. Rayn and Nyra suited up this time in full viral armor, multi-sealed, equipped with adaptive filtration and kinetic dampeners. Even so, Seraph warned, this world violates normal biological logic. If you experience hallucinations, auditory anomalies, or internal time distortion, signal immediately. Comforting, Rayn muttered. They stepped into the ruins, inside the arcology. Nature and technology had fused into grotesque hybrids. Walls had sprouted veins. Floors moved, subtly underfoot. Strange lights pulsed in the distance, neither natural nor electric. The plague had not just killed Zephan. It had reshaped it. Rayn's HUD pinged movement. Contact, East Corridor, 80 meters. They moved in tandem, silent, efficient. As they turned the corner, they came face to face with a humanoid figure crouched beside a pile of broken drones. It turned. Not infected, not hostile. A man in a tattered exosuit, with a mechanical visor over one eye and cybernetic filaments running through his skin. He raised a hand in greeting. "You're late," he said, voice rough from disuse. "I've been expecting you." Nyra leveled her weapon. "Name?" He smirked. "They used to call me Kalen, Engineer Prime. Now I just fix what's left of the world." Rayn stepped forward. "You knew we were coming." Kalen nodded. "Seraph warned me years ago. Said I'd be needed. Said I'd hate it." Nyra frowned. "You're awfully calm for a man living in a walking tomb." Kalen tapped the side of his head. "That's because I stopped being fully human about 5 years ago. Hard to panic when your limbic system's optional." He turned and gestured for them to follow. "Come, this place is about to become unstable." They entered a deep sublayer of the Arcology core chamber, where Kalen had constructed a labyrinthine lab out of salvaged tech and arcane machinery. Screens floated mid-air, displaying equations that danced and rewrote themselves. Drones moved like insects, repairing walls that didn't stay broken. Kalen moved with the confidence of a man who had long accepted madness as routine. "What happened here?" Rayn asked, scanning the twisted architecture. Kalen didn't look back. They tried to interface with what they called the Deus Seed, a fragment of machine god code, recovered from the edge of the singularity abyss. The goal was to create conscious cities, living infrastructure. Rayn's blood ran cold. And the result? It worked, Kalen said, until the cities started dreaming. Nyra muttered, "That's impossible." Kalen stopped. "That's why it spread. The dream wasn't content to stay inside metal. It wanted minds. It became a plague of thought and idea, so contagious that it rewrote biology. Those who survived weren't immune, just adapted." Rayn looked around. "And you?" Kalen sighed. "I was one of the architects. I built the link that started it all. But Seraph warned me just in time. I cut myself off from the hive before it reached full recursion." He turned, his face hard. "Now, you want my help." Why? Rayn didn't flinch. "Because the Karthor are winning. Because they're using technology that defies known science, technology that might come from the same source. You know how to fight this. You've seen it before." Kalen was silent. Then he said, "They're not just using it. They're becoming it." Rayn and Nyra exchanged a glance. Kalen walked to the central terminal and activated a hologram footage of a Karthor ship melting into a city, not docking, not landing, merging, like it belonged there. "Their command ships now rewrite local space," Kalen said. "They terraform with thought. That's Deus Seed level 6 adaptation. There's no stopping it with conventional weapons." Rayn stepped forward. "Then what do we need?" Kalen's smile was cold. "A virus." Nyra stiffened. "What kind of virus?" "One that attacks the dream," Kalen said. "A memetic counter-signal. I've been building it for years. It's not ready, but with your help, it could be." Rayn nodded. "Then we extract you, get you to Seraf's node. Finish it there. Kalen shook his head. Can't. The virus core is anchored here. Move it. It destabilizes. I go where it goes. Rayn turned to Nyra. We hold position. She didn't like it. This place is death. No, Kalen. Corrected. This place is alive. And it knows you're here. Suddenly, the lights dimmed. The floor vibrated. External incursion detected. Seraf's voice crackled through comms. Karthor vessels incoming. They have breached orbit. You have 10 minutes. Rayn clenched his fists. How the hell did they know? Kalen looked at the ceiling. Because the dream wants to silence me. He handed Rayn a data core. Get this to Seraf. Even if I fall. Rayn shook his head. Not leaving you. You might have no choice. Alarms sounded. The ceiling cracked. From above, Karthor units descended, no longer fully mechanical, but twisting. Shifting creatures of alloy and organ, their eyes glowing with unlight. Nyra opened fire. The chamber became war. Rayn pulled Kalen to cover, laying down suppressive blasts. How many of them? Kalen laughed, mad, sharp, bitter. Enough to make us legends. They held the line for as long as they could. But the chamber was collapsing. The dream had awakened, and it wanted everything back. Kalen activated a failsafe, tearing open a portal of folded space. Go. This leads to Seraf's vault on Idris Station. Rayn grabbed him. Not without you. Kalen pushed him away. If I go, the virus unravels. But you can finish it. You can end the dream. Rayn stared at him, furious, helpless. Then Nyra grabbed him. We go, General. They dove through the portal as the lab exploded in light and screams. Rayn awoke on the floor of Seraf's chamber, bruised, coughing. Nyra was beside him, unconscious but breathing. In his hand, the virus core pulsed. Seraf's voice filled the room. You now hold the seed of resistance. 3 of the circle have acted. Rayn stood, every bone aching. Then let's finish what he started. The stars over Kalen V burned bright to bright. They shimmered unnaturally, like a warning in the sky. Rayn stood on the edge of the command balcony aboard the cruiser Vigilant Hope, staring down at the planet below. Kalen had once been a lush outpost world, known for its sprawling forests and crystal lakes. Now, its surface was covered with jagged lines of red, a planetary grid being etched in real time by the invading Karthor hive constructs. They're rewriting the crust, Nyra muttered beside him. It's not war, it's assimilation. Rayn didn't respond. His thoughts were still on Kalen, his sacrifice, the core they'd retrieved, and the revelation that the Karthor weren't just using alien technology, they were becoming it. Seraf's voice rang through the deck. Planetary integrity loss at 19%, estimated full conversion. 72 hours. Rayn turned. Deploy the Exodus. A dozen officers looked up from their terminals. Sir, said Commander Brask, unsure. You heard me. I want the population evacuated within 36 hours. Prioritize children and Tier 1 specialists. Everyone else gets a choice. But the circle. Brask began. I'm in command now, Rayn snapped, and I won't let another world fall without a fight. On the surface, Kalen's skies cracked with lightning. Troop carriers descended in waves, delivering Marines, artillery walkers, and autonomous defenses. The air smelled of static and ozone, as if the planet itself was resisting what it was becoming. Rayn and Nyra rode down in a black Talon-class gunship, flanked by 2 drone squadrons. They weren't just here to evacuate. They were here to meet someone. Circle member Vena Sol, former admiral and liaison to the outer systems, had requested a face-to-face. But something about her timing and her silence since the fall of Zephan made Rayn wary. As the gunship approached the Sindara citadel, Rayn's gut twisted. The structure had been a fortress of hope during the early war years. Now, its towers looked skeletal, and its defenses eerily dormant. Nyra checked her weapon. Feels like a trap, because it is, Rayn muttered. But we're going anyway. Vena stood waiting in the hall of the citadel. She was clad in pristine diplomatic armor, face cold and unreadable. 2 of her guards flanked her, neither showing insignia. General Rayn, she said smoothly. You look tired. Rayn didn't break stride. Cut the politics. We're evacuating the planet. You're either helping or getting out of the way. I'm doing neither, Vena replied. Because you're about to undo everything. Nyra stepped forward. Define everything. Vayna's eyes narrowed. Kalen's virus, the memetic counter-seed. You can't deploy it. Rayn froze. How do you know about that? I'm on the circle, she said simply. And I'm not the only one who believes the virus could awaken something worse than the Karthor. That's not your decision. It's not yours either. Suddenly, the room filled with heat. Seraf's voice came through their neural comms, tight with alarm, warning. Spatial flux detected. Incoming Karthor splicer units. They are burrowing through phase space. You've been lured. Vayna's expression shifted just for a moment. Rayn stepped back. Weapon raised. You led them here. I warned you, Vayna said, unflinching. They already know. The virus is a threat to their dream. They're responding preemptively. The walls around them shifted, from thin cracks in the floor. Metallic tendrils erupted, searching. Sensing, Karthor bioforms slipped between dimensions like ghosts. Rayn fired first. The citadel fell into chaos. Rayn and Nyra retreated through collapsing corridors, pursued by hybrid creatures that shrieked without mouths. Vayna vanished in the confusion, whether killed or absorbed. They couldn't tell. Down in the archives, they found what they didn't expect. A child, barely 10. Surrounded by a cocoon of light. Nyra hesitated. That's not possible. The citadel was clear. The child looked up with glowing blue eyes. You're carrying the virus. Rayn froze. Who are you? I'm what the Karthor fear, the child said, and what Seraf calls the catalyst. Then the cocoon shattered. The planet above them cracked as evacuation fleets fled into orbit, and Karthor assimilation towers bored deeper into the crust. A pulse exploded from the surface, originating not from Kalen's virus, but from the child. Every Karthor unit in a 500-mile radius screamed, convulsed, and froze. Rayn and Nyra watched in awe. She's using the virus, Nyra whispered, but not as a weapon, as a language. Seraf's voice broke through the silence. New data acquired. The child is a partial construct. Her DNA includes strands from the Deus Seed and Kalen's genome. A living failsafe. Rayn looked down at the girl. Who made you? She blinked slowly. You did. Hours later, aboard Vigilant Hope, Rayn stood in the medical chamber, watching the child sleep. She's more than a failsafe, Nyra said quietly. She's proof. Proof of what? That the dream can be rewritten. Rayn didn't answer. In his pocket, the virus core still pulsed, now sensed to the child's neural pattern. He looked out the viewport. Kalenvi burned below, still falling but no longer uncontested. The war had changed. So had the rules. The journey to Ilaris, the last uninfected world in the Outer Rim, took 6 hours through phase-fold corridors. Rayn watched the child sleep in a suspended stasis cradle designed to protect her neural field. Despite all the chaos she'd unleashed on Kalenvi, she looked fragile, small. But the Karthor hadn't seen her that way. Seraf's voice filled the command chamber. Planetary status, Ilaris remains unbreached, but the window is closing. Seismic fluctuations in the outer atmosphere indicate incoming phase incursions. We knew it. Wouldn't stay safe forever, Nyra said. Rayn nodded slowly. This is the last place we can test the virus safely. We do this here or nowhere. Ilaris was a world of towering crystal forests and subterranean cities. Unlike the metal-choked core worlds, its people had evolved alongside psionic technology, favoring resonance over computation. The planet's defenses were not of steel or missile, but thought and will. At the primary landing site, they were met by Ilarian custodian kin, human in appearance, but with soft luminous patterns along their skin. One of them stepped forward, a tall woman with silver eyes and a voice like wind over glass. You brought the child, she said, not asked. Rayn inclined his head. She's the key to stopping the Karthor, and possibly a doorway to something worse. The custodian kin leader studied him. Then you must meet the speaker. She has waited since the dreaming wars began. Inside the cradle spire, an ancient psionic hub deep beneath the planet's crust, Rayn, Nyra, and the child were guided into a chamber of floating memory crystals. Each hummed with the echoes of Ilarian history. At the center stood the speaker of memory, an elder who no longer seemed entirely physical. Her presence shimmered between dimensions, and her voice bypassed sound entirely, entering their thoughts directly. She was seated here before time wore names, the speaker said, looking at the child. A possibility planted in the human line, meant to bloom in fire. Rayn stepped forward. Can she defeat them? The speaker's eyes clouded. She can end them, but endings are not always victories. Nyra frowned. What do you mean? The virus Kaelin designed is more than a cure. It is a language, a rewriting. Once released fully through her, it will ripple across systems. The Karthor will die, but so will every mind tied to the Deus Seed. Rayn's blood chilled. How many people is that? The speaker turned slowly. Hundreds of millions. Some know it, some don't. Their minds are already webbed to the dream. And if we don't deploy it, Nyra asked, then the Karthor consume the galaxy. Later that night, Rayn sat alone in the observation spire, overlooking the crystal fields of Valeris. The child approached silently. You're not sleeping, she said. He looked at her, unable to find the right words. She answered for him. You're afraid of choosing. You shouldn't have to be the one carrying this, Rayn said. You're just a child. I'm not, she said simply. I'm a design, an intention. Rayn stared at her. Do you feel anything? Joy? Pain? I feel echoes. I dream of places I've never been. I miss people who never existed. He closed his eyes. We've come to a crossroads, haven't we? She nodded. Whatever we do next, there's no going back. The circle called a final meeting. 7 members, connected through a secure channel in Seraf's protected uplink. Each holographic face flickered with tension. Some wanted immediate deployment of the virus. Others demanded it be studied further. Vena's soul appeared last, her survival a surprise, her tone unreadable. I warned you before, she said. You cannot wield a weapon that dreams. The child is not a key. She's a threshold. Rayn stepped forward. Then maybe we need to step through. Chaos erupted. Arguments, accusations. But Rayn didn't wait. He looked at Seraf. Initiate controlled test. Limited radius. Containment protocols active. Let the child choose the path. In the Illyrian cradle, the child was placed in a resonance chamber. Memory crystals floated around her, spinning faster and faster. Her breath deepened. Her eyes glowed. I see it now, she whispered. The dream is afraid. Seraf counted down. 3, 2, 1. The virus pulse. Released. Across a 100-kilometer radius, every Karthor signature vanished, not destroyed, converted. Their structures reformed, becoming crystalline, inert. Trees that had died regenerated in minutes. And the minds of the infected returned. One of the infected, a soldier from Callan, broke down sobbing. I was gone. I thought I was dead. But I remember everything now. The test had worked, and yet something else had changed. The child fainted, and as she fell, every light in the cradle dimmed. Hours later, Nyra and Rayn stood by her stasis chamber again. She used too much, Nyra said softly. Her neural pathways are stabilizing, but she's distant. Seraf hovered above them. We have a weapon. We have a chance. Rayn nodded, but his eyes remained on the sleeping child. Prepare the fleet, he said. We go to the core. Worlds, Nyra blinked. You're planning full deployment. Rayn looked at her. No, we're going to offer them a choice. The core worlds loomed like dying stars. 6 systems, once beacons of civilization, now shimmered under the spectral glow of Karthor dominion. Entire planets encased in neural scaffolding. Moons repurposed into living thought engines. Human cities distorted into vast echoing temples of machine dream. Rayn stood aboard vigilant hope, hands clasped behind his back. Before him, a live rendering of the ardent spiral, the most vital cluster of habitable worlds, flickered with shifting enemy presence. We can't bomb them, Nyra said. Not anymore. There are still people down there, trapped, wired into the dream. We're not bombing, Rayn replied. We're waking them. Seraf's core rotated slowly in the center of the war room. Catalyst integration is complete. The child's neural signal has been expanded into a scalable transmission protocol. In theory, it will reach every connected mind within the core systems. Nyra exhaled. In theory. Rayn glanced toward the med chamber viewport, where the child, now almost unrecognizable in her cocoon of psionic light, lay suspended in a lattice of energy. She said, they fear her, he murmured. Because she speaks in a language they can't control. The fleet moved silently through Graveline Expanse, approaching the outer orbit of Tyria 5. Once the jewel of humanity. It was now a shrine. Thousands of Karthor constructs orbited it like worshippers. Ships grown from fused flesh and metal. They formed a living defense grid. Pulsing with synchronized thoughts, we breached that line, Commander Brask warned. And we start a war no one walks away from. Rayn stepped forward. We're not breaching. We're inviting. Seraph initiated a directed pulse from the child's Kakuna neural broadcast. Unlike anything previously attempted. No commands, no force. Just invitation. The message was simple. You can wake up. For 20 seconds, the fleet waited in silence. Then the stars changed. 3 Karthor cruisers halted. Then reversed course. A 4th twitched in place, its armor plates jittering, collapsing inward like a dying insect from its shattered hull. Humans spilled out in escape pods screaming, dazed. Alive, Nyra's eyes widened. It's working, not everywhere, but somewhere. The virus wasn't just a purge, it was a choice, echoing across the network of connected minds. Seraph's analysis poured in. 15% of integrated minds have rejected the dream. Independent thought spikes are appearing. Signal conversion increasing exponentially. However, Rayn turned. However, the Karthor are adapting. A segment of their consciousness has begun to resist. They are splitting. One half rejecting, the other evolving. On Tyria 5's surface, the sky turned black. A figure emerged from the cathedral of thought, a monstrous fusion of biocode and consciousness. Towering, semi-humanoid, draped in a cloak of shimmering nanospikes, it was Sillareth, a new Karthor entity born from the dream's survival instinct. It spoke not in sound, but across every ship's systems. Every neural link, you have introduced noise into the harmony. You are cancer to what could have been eternal. We will erase you and write your echoes into obedience. Rayn stepped forward, his thoughts clear. We don't want obedience. We want freedom. Sillareth attacked. A wave of Karthor ships surged toward the fleet. The stars became a battlefield, geometry breaking, reality twisting. The child pulsed in response, extending her will through Seraph's amplification array. Infected ships froze, stuttered, then turned on each other. It was chaos, but it was hope. Rayn and Nyra led a drop team into the heart of Tyria 5, aiming for the central anchor, the broadcast tower that kept the Karthor dream alive across systems. Inside, human forms were stacked like servers, eyes vacant, bodies still breathing. The air buzzed with whispers. Don't wake us. Too much pain outside. Let me dream. Nyra stepped back, shaken. They chose this. No, Rayn said. They were made to believe they had no choice. They reached the anchor chamber. Sillareth appeared again, this time in person. A form of glitching mass and impossibility. Tentacles of thought, limbs of meaning. It raised a blade made of compressed memory. Rayn lifted his rifle, but the weapon jammed, instantly rejected by reality. Nyra pulled the child forward. She has to do it. The child opened her eyes. She was no longer glowing, just present, real. I'm not a weapon, she said to Sillareth. I'm a mirror. Then she screamed, not in pain, but in truth. The scream tore through space and mind and thought. It shattered the anchor. It erased code. It silenced echoes, and Sillareth blinked out of existence. Silence fell across the core worlds. The dream collapsed. People awoke, some screaming, some in tears, some confused. Ships powered down. Towers dimmed. Thought engines ground to a halt. Humanity, in all its messiness, was free again, but not without cost. Back aboard Vigilant Hope, Rayn watched the child for the last time. She no longer breathed. Seraph confirmed it. Her pattern is gone. She burned everything she was to give them back themselves. Nyra stood beside him, hollow. She was never meant to live, just to remind us. Rayn nodded. No more weapons like her, he said. No more dreams we don't wake from. As the galaxy began to rebuild, messages poured in from liberated worlds. And one message came from beyond, an ancient satellite from deep time, replaying a forgotten signal. The dream was never meant to control. It was a warning, a lesson. Survive, but remain yourself. The war was over, but peace had not yet begun. Scattered across the stars, Liberated systems reeled from the fallout of awakening. Entire planets stirred like patients emerging from coma, uncertain, angry, grateful, afraid. Some embraced their second chance. Others mourned the simplicity of the dream they had lost. On Tyria 5, reconstruction began under the shadow of its shattered cathedral. Bodies were buried, thought engines dismantled, echoes silenced, the old ways organic, flawed, human returned. But in the quiet, a question grew louder. What now? Rayn sat alone in the ruins of the central anchor tower. The others had gone Nyra to lead relief efforts, Brass to organize post-conflict defenses, Seraph to self-isolate for recalibration. Even the child, though she no longer breathed, seemed to linger only in memory now. He held her last, drawing a circle within a circle, like ripples on water. She had made it the night before they deployed her consciousness into the core, a mirror. She'd called it. That's all I am. Rayn looked up at the sky, stars still flickering with the ashes of war. Was that all anyone was? Across the galaxy, the Circle of 11 convened again, now 8 members. 3 having died during the final siege. This time, they did not meet in secure bunkers or encrypted relays. They gathered in person, on Alaris, beneath the living crystals. No titles, no ranks, just survivors. Vena's soul was the last to arrive. Her eyes, once hard as obsidian, now carried something like humility. I tried to control it, she said simply. But control was never the answer. Nyra nodded. We all tried something. Isolation, aggression, containment. None of it worked. Only honesty did. Rayn stepped forward. We have a chance now. But only if we don't try to go back to what we were before. The dream didn't begin with the Karthor. We created the soil it grew in our desire for perfection, for answers, for immortality. Vena looked at him. And what's the alternative? Mess, Rayn replied. Questions, uncertainty, life. In the months that followed, a new treaty was born not of planetary alliances, but of inner mind boundaries. A declaration that no sentient being's consciousness could be connected or modified. Without full awareness and consent, they called it the Echo Accord. And though many questioned whether it would hold, for the first time in centuries, true debate returned to the Galactic Commons. No one controlled the truth anymore. People had to speak it themselves. Rayn refused all offers of power. He didn't want to govern. He returned to the edge of known space aboard a small ship, alone. Except for the occasional messages from Nyra and Seraph's automated ping. He spent his days exploring old data archives, forgotten ruins, listening to static signals from long-dead civilizations. And one day, deep in the Kantara Rift, his comms picked up a frequency unlike anything he'd heard. A child's voice. The mirror is not gone. I'm still here. Just turned sideways. Rayn froze. Is that you? I'm not a weapon. Not anymore. I'm remembering myself. Piece by piece out here. There are others, lost ones, dreaming things. I'm going to find them. Come if you want. Or tell them not to follow. The signal ended. Back on Alaris, Nyra received the same message. She smiled sadly. She's not done, she whispered. None of us are. The war had ended. The child was gone. Or transformed. The dream had collapsed. But the story of the galaxy had only just begun. The end.